Situation in Israel is very much touching the First Minister and his wife.
Yes, indeed. And my heart goes out both to Nadia and her husband Hamza, and indeed to the people that we've just watched on the TV there. There's unimaginable suffering in Israel, and there's unimaginable suffering in Gaza right now. And what we need is collective international leadership to ensure that innocent civilians, both in Israel and in Gaza, are protected.
What's the SNP's position? Do you support the actions of Israel at the moment?
So what we know is that Hamas committed an abhorrent terrorist attack on the Jewish people and on the Israeli state. And we unequivocally condemn that along with all other parties. And what we need now is to ensure that, as I say, civilians are protected both in Israel and in Gaza. And that's going to require the defeat of Hamas. That's going to require the safe return of all hostages. And it's also going to require the opening of humanitarian corridors to Gaza so that people can get out and aid can get in. It's going to require water, electricity, medicine, so that hospitals can function. But perhaps most important of all, it's going to require no collective punishment. What does
that mean?
Well, this is not a state-on-state conflict. This is a terrorist organisation hiding within a civilian population. And I think we need to respond to it on those terms.
We know that the American president is going tomorrow. Hearing the latest from the IDF and the Israeli government that everybody's expecting a ground invasion, it may be something else, they're saying, rather than that. Would you implore them for it not to be a ground invasion?
I think if we can get to a space where that wasn't the case, I think that would be beneficial for all. I don't see how a full ground invasion can limit civilian casualties within Gaza. Now, we already know that there's been an order for a huge number of people to move within Gaza itself. We know firsthand from people within Gaza that that's simply not possible, including, of course, the member of the First Minister's family who hails from the same city that I do. I understand the desire of Israel to respond. I understand the hurt and the horror which they have faced. I don't think you add to hurt and horror by making more civilians suffer. And hopefully the international community, along with Israel, along with the UK Prime Minister, can get us all to a space where civilians are protected on both Israel and indeed in Gaza.
It was your SNP conference over the weekend. The SNP is saying that it won't use the next general election as a de facto referendum on Scottish independence. Why is that?
So what we have set out at conference, and all of us agreed to it, which I was quite pleased with, is the fact that on page 1, line 1 of the SNP manifesto say that a vote for the SNP is a vote to make Scotland an independent country. And we will seek to give democratic effect to that. Now, what does that mean in practice? It means that we hope that the UK government will give us an independence referendum. But we've added much more meat to the bones, which I think is incredibly important, particularly given that it's likely we're going to have a Labour Prime Minister. So what we would like to see is the power over an independence referendum transferred from Westminster to Holyrood, but also some of the key levers to allow us to resolve the cost of living crisis. So powers over energy, powers over single market access, powers over migration. Now, if the Labour leader wants to come to Scotland and say that, no, you're not going to have your referendum, but if he's then also going to say, no, we're not going to have further powers for Holyrood, those are quite severe comments for a Labour Party leader to make. Ian Murray, the shadow Scottish Secretary, has intimated that there will be no more devolution. I don't think the people of Scotland will respond well to that.
Well, that's what the Supreme Court says.
Well, the Supreme Court, of course, ruled that the power rests in London to make this decision. What we are suggesting is that that power transfer to Edinburgh. I think the Scottish people would agree with that, but also so many other powers in order to deal with the biggest challenge of today, which is, of course, the cost of living crisis.
So what would you say to the Labour leader if he became Prime Minister? Why would he do that?
Well, what I would say to Keir Starmer is quite simple, that if he believes himself to be a Democrat and the Scottish National Party win a majority of seats in that general election next year, which I'm very confident we will, then he needs to heed the democratic view of the people of Scotland. If he does not, then he is simply repeating the same narrative that Boris Johnson, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak have put forward, and that's not change at all.
I wonder how powerful your party is at the moment, looking at the Rutherglen and Hamilton West by-election. You lost that, of course, didn't you?
Yes, we did. We took a bit of a kicking in Rutherglen. And, you know, it afforded all of us the opportunity to sit down and reflect upon why that is. Yeah, there's specific circumstances to do with that by-election. Yes, we are all very conscious of the challenges that the party has faced over the course of the last 6 or 7 months. but it allowed us the opportunity to reset. And at conference, we've outlined exactly how we're going to approach the general election. And I think that the strategy that we've got is a very compelling one. And I think the First Minister, with his speech this afternoon, is going to delve right into the why of independence as opposed to just the process.
Talk to me about Lisa Cameron. She's defected to the Tories. She says the SNP is a cult and claimed that it was a toxic culture. She says that Dr. Cameron's saying that she's being told by people within the party that they hope that she burns.
Yes, so firstly, I've been in touch with Lisa as well, and I've seen some of the news headlines in and around the fact that I think she's had to close her constituency office and is maybe away from home with her family at the moment. So I send my deepest sympathies and regards to Lisa in that respect. It's simply not acceptable. In terms of Lisa's characterisation of the group, Lisa was there for a lot longer than I was as well. She was elected many years before I was. I simply don't recognise it in any way, shape or form. My colleagues, yes, we disagree, but we all work collegiately. And I was very surprised with some of the remarks that Lisa's made.
But what about people who are saying, I hope you burn? What would you say to them?
That's utterly appalling. And I think I did condemn that in my opening comments there. And I've already been in touch with Lisa to say that's simply not acceptable.
OK. Just final thought before I let you go. Nicola Sturgeon made a surprise appearance at the party conference. I think to some that might have been as popular as Liz Truss going to the Tory one.
I mean, I've seen this analogy put forward and it's utterly ridiculous. Liz Truss crashed the UK economy. She ruined millions of lives. Nicola Sturgeon has a record to be proud of. She is
Depends what happens next.
Oh, she is. Are you suggesting that something might happen,
Who
Kate?
knows what might happen? I mean, I can't predict what the police are going to do in Scotland, but if she finds herself on the wrong end of the law until proven otherwise, that's going to be damaging for the party.
And that's a very big if, and I wouldn't want to delve into an ongoing police investigation myself, but the way that Nicola has conducted herself throughout this, when she was First Minister of Scotland, she was one of the most successful politicians these isles, the whole of Western Europe, has seen in a generation. She's a party member. I was delighted to see her at conference yesterday, and you know the warmth which she was received by conference is a mark of her leadership during her time as First Minister. We now, of course, have a new First Minister, and I'm looking forward to seeing his speech at party conference this afternoon.